who is the number one candidate that you want the Raiders to hire to turn this around?
Number one for me is Clint Kubiak. JSN had his best year. Sam Darnold was protected. The offensive line was powerful. So for me, I wouldn't go after a defensive-minded coach. I would try to find someone to fix this offense. Number two, it's culture. And if he got fired, which I don't know if he will, I would go after Mike Tomlin tomorrow. Like, nobody will change culture and overhaul it quite like Tomlin. Competency's okay. You're not going to be elite overnight, and that screams to me Mike Tomlin.
If the Raiders drafted Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza, who just won the Heisman Trophy with the first overall pick, I think they should back up the Brinks truck for Indiana coach Curt Cignetti. I don't think Cignetti would leave Indiana and leave college football, but that would be awesome. Talk about culture, Cignetti going to coach the Las Vegas Raiders, but that's probably unrealistic. I'll actually go with a culture builder who failed. I think he would say that, building a culture the first time around. You know I love this guy. Former Dolphins head coach, current Vikings defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, who wore out his welcome in Miami, didn't play nice in the sandbox, was mean to Tua Tagovailoa. If he kind of was, right? If we think that Brian Flores has learned from that experience and can be a better, people manager moving forward, he's a stud defensive coordinator, took a bad Miami team that people thought was tanking and had them respectable. I think Flores, as far as realistic candidates go that the Raiders could land, for me, Brian Flores would be a no-brainer, A-plus, slam dunk, grand slam hire for the Las Vegas Raiders.
And to your point, he's not going to have that many options in terms of places that he's available to go. There's coaches like Harbaugh who got called by 7 teams. Flores has a little bit of stink on him. Enough stink where I don't think there's a bunch of different jobs that he could take, so much so that I think that that's actually a pretty decent pairing.
I think he should be a head coach again. I think the Raiders would be a great landing spot for Brian Flores. So we mentioned the number one overall pick in the draft, which the Raiders have. A lot of people think it'll be Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza or Oregon quarterback Dante Moore. What say you, Trysta? Who should the Raiders take early in the process with the number one pick?
Do not go out and get a quarterback when you have no offensive line, when you're 32nd in every single metric, when you allowed 55 sacks to Geno Smith. That will break a quarterback. I don't care who you are. Unless you're Joe Burrow, who sustained 30 sacks his first year before he tore his ACL in week 10, there's not that many generational quarterbacks out there. They come around once every 5 years, maybe, and I don't think I've seen enough from Mendoza or Moore in order for me to put him in such a bad situation and potentially break him before he even gets acclimated to the league. So to me, I would take David Bailey out of Texas Tech. I'm an Oregon alum, so I saw what he was able to do. 14 and a half sacks on the year, Nick. If you trade Max Crosby, if you don't trade Max Crosby, doesn't matter. Two-headed snake putting quarterbacks on their back.
I like the thought process there, and the offensive line's really bad. Look, you know where you have to take a quarterback. You cannot roll with Geno Smith. You cannot roll with Kenny Pickett. You cannot roll with Aiden O'Connell. Whether it's Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, you're right. Like the Bengals with Joe Burrow in his rookie year. The one that everyone will always talk about is the Houston Texans with David Carr in David Carr's first year, and he was sacked over 70 times. And the Raiders' offensive line was the worst offensive line in the league. But if they could get to even a below-average offensive line, as opposed to worst offensive line in the league, I think that can be enough to have the offense be competent. You have to get a new face of the franchise in there. You absolutely have to take a quarterback if you're the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, and the question is maybe you go and get somebody as a bridge quarterback. We saw what Indianapolis was able to do with Daniel Jones, what Seattle and Minnesota were able to do with Sam Darnold. That's showing the league that, hey, some of these quarterbacks are more talented than we think they are, and in the right system, they can show up and show out to a competent degree. And then maybe you can build around them, at least as a bridge. Maybe that's a Mac Jones. I don't know. There's a bunch of quarterbacks out there that are backups, Jacoby Brissett, that have been competent.
I'll give you 2 names. Malik Willis from the Green Bay Packers, who I think is going to get maybe not a huge deal, but I think will be starting for a team in week 1 next year. And if they hire Brian Flores, because the Dolphins are going to buy Tua Tagovailoa out of his contract, reunite Flores and Tua in Las Vegas. I'm mostly kidding. But I think Tua's going to be a bridge quarterback he won't be on the Dolphins next year. And if they don't hire Flores, I don't know. I don't think you can sell Tua to the Raiders fan base. That's like, you have to take a quarterback. I'm stuck on that right now.
Mendoza better be built different because it's going to be him under duress no matter what, even if they are middle of the road. And that also shows you need to have a very, very good offensive coordinator in order to scheme around a middle of the road to bottom third O-line. Or you need to figure out a way to make that O-line top third in the league.
And I'll say this, and I'll speak for Trysta. I'm guessing you're going to agree. For all the Raiders fans out there, if you're pissed at your team right now, if you're pissed at us for something we said, the NFL is better when the Raiders are good. We all want the Raiders to be good. We hope they get it right this offseason.